All right, folks, a quick message before we get started from our sponsors, React Health. React Health, formerly 3B Medical, a leading provider of sleep diagnostic, and respiratory products. Now back to the show. All right, folks, we got another episode. You know what this means? Time for some pre-cals. So, guys, what's going on over here? Robert.
Hey, we've got Hani Kayyali today, who is with us. He's the CEO of CleveMed. Really interested to hear, his story. He's got a background in research and in engineering, and he's worked his way. I'm telling you, you can find a pathway into sleep medicine from all sorts of avenues. And so I'm pretty sure that when he started college here in the U.S., that he had no intention of getting into sleep medicine, but good for him that he's, sort of charted a course and been able to, become a part of a really successful home sleep apnea testing company. And they've been around a long time. So their viability and sustainability in a market where there's lots of new products all the time, is really good.
Yeah, they were kind of like one of the original virtual home testing companies. They even scoring, because you try to compete against them, and so often it was tough because you're providing the device, but they're providing this whole service, and that made them really have a unique market offering and differentiation that was really tough to compete against.
Yeah, one thing. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
I was going to say, it's probably something that hospital sleep labs should consider more to do more of. For patients who can come into a lab and pick up a home sleep apnea testing device, let those patients do that, but then expand your geography and your coverage area by outsourcing to a company who, can get the device mailed to the patient and not necessarily try to take over your entire program if that's not something that you're looking for.
I agree. One thing that I'm interested in learning more about, you brought up that fact about you could be from any walk of life and somehow find your way into sleep. And he's an engineer. We've had a couple of engineers on the show, so it's kind of crazy to see another engineer on here. And that too, he's now president and CEO of this company. So even wilder that way when you look at it. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Talking about that, you guys ready?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of SleepTech Talk, your sleep podcast with your hosts and friends, Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald Mannikarote. Once again, we have a fantastic episode. And before we get started, Robert, tell us who's our guest today.
Absolutely. Jerry, thank you. This is usually Emerson's job. I'm going to completely do a terrible rendition of introductions today, but we have Hani Kayyali with us today. And I probably did a terrible job of that. Hani, you'll have to correct me in just a minute, but let me tell the audience a little bit about you. You're Palestinian. You grew up in Lebanon. Hani came to the U.S. in 1984. He attended Case Western Reserve University, where he was able to receive his BS and MS in biomedical engineering. So he's a lot smarter than everyone else on this call. And then
I don't know about that.
Everyone else put together.
No way.
And then he got his MBA from Case Western as well. During the first decade of his career, he worked on different research projects related to nerve and muscle electrical stimulation, including the early research on hypoglossal nerve stimulation for OSA. We know how that worked out. Phrenic nerve stimulation to restore respiration in spinal cord injured patients, ALS, central apneas. He also worked on the early nerve stimulation research for Christopher Reeve, or who was Superman. After his time there doing research, he joined two other small businesses before finally joining CleveMed 20 years ago. So he's been doing this as long as us old guys on the call. But he helped CleveMed commercialize its extensive research along with the process. They spun off 3 different companies while focusing CleveMed on OSA monitoring technologies. They've been focused on OSA over the past 10 years, and their flagship product is the SleepView HSAT monitor Type 3, and associated cloud software and mail order logistics solution. They've got over 20 patents in various aspects of sleep testing monitoring, including cloud-based technologies and therapy follow-up solutions. He also is married and has 2 daughters. I'm glad you finished up with that. That's your best work, Hani. That's your best work.
Everyone, yeah, everyone's. Thank you.
That's great to have you.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, guys.
Well, Hani, that's a little bit of the introduction. Why don't we have you kind of jump in and talk about, you've been with CleveMed in different forms, I guess, for, a number of years now. Tell us a little bit about how you made your way into sleep and then, how you've been able to establish CleveMed as one of the leading HSAT companies in the country and how things are with the company today.
Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate having me on, guys, and the opportunity to talk about CleveMed. How we got in the business we had a number of research topics that CleveMed was heavy and doing a lot of research in different areas, and there was 2 governing factors. First is we thought you really need to focus in order to succeed. You got to focus and focus and then focus. So that's why we spun off companies to focus on different fields and have CleveMed focus on sleep apnea. One of the reasons why we selected sleep testing, sleep apnea, is because of the 2 things. The market was huge, especially 10, 15, 20 years ago. Still is huge, but at that time it was mostly undiagnosed and untreated. It was 90-95% remain untreated. So it was a huge untapped market, and even at that time, we saw there was going to have to be an effective way to do the testing in the home. As well as there was an effective treatment. And so it just made sense to focus on sleep apnea from those perspectives. So yeah, we're fortunate in that aspect. We were able to develop a lot of IP, intellectual property, in this field as well, and of course we developed technologies, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you like. But that's more or less how we focused CleveMed on sleep testing.
So that's interesting. But you personally, how did you stumble into this? I mean, you've done so much research in there with the nerve stimulation.
Yeah,
it's like a roundabout way to get there.
Well, so I was at the American University of Beirut way back when. I was doing civil engineering, and then halfway through my schooling there, it was it was the middle of the Civil War and everything. So we said, well, we can't let's go to greener pastures. So I was fortunate to get accepted by Case Western Reserve University here. And one of the reasons why I didn't stay in civil engineering is because I wanted to select a discipline and a major that gave me the most credits. And biomedical engineering was the one that got me out of school the fastest, because it was an expensive school and I couldn't afford it. So that's how I got into biomedical engineering. I wish I had a better story, but that's what it was. Sometimes you're driven by how school costs and how much it does. So but then we got into the research. I was really fascinated by research right from the beginning at Case with the implantable stimulators for all sorts of functions that Robert had mentioned. And then when I joined the other companies, I realized that small businesses really need to focus. So that kind of drove me back to when I joined CleveMed. I was driven by the fact that you've got to, as I mentioned, you got to focus on a certain field. And when I looked at all the fields within CleveMed, I wanted to stay with the sleep apnea field because of what I mentioned. It's just a great business opportunity and a great opportunity to help patients. In hindsight, I would have loved to be a physician myself, because I've always liked to talk to patients and deal with patients. But so that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into biomedical engineering and then the sleep field.
One of the things I recognized about your company gosh, several years ago is in a lot of ways you were pioneering in the at-home model of care that now everybody wants to do. You know, when you began to look at that and see that market opportunity, as you say, what was going through your mind? Because clearly the technology as a whole, as the industry, just wasn't there yet. But you guys had something that you were able to really be differentiate yourselves with and provide something unique to the market. What was that journey like in making that decision?
Yeah, it was grueling, you know. I mean, a lot of the folks who've been in with the home sleep testing, you know, they will attest to that too, and you guys have been around as well. It's just it was a long process, you know, because nobody wanted to do home sleep testing. No, are you kidding? What's this? You know, only a couple of channels and yeah, but that we stuck with it. We were fortunate that we received quite a bit of funding from the NIH and government funding that helped us really develop the technologies and sustain us through the process, you know, so we were fortunate on that front as well. But yeah, it was just sticking through it, believing in it, and that it will at some point materialize, and here we are. So it is now, it is becoming mainstream. It's really a dream come true. um, but we saw that we developed technologies, but as I mentioned, the intellectual property as well. We believed in the, you know, in the internet and the cloud thing way back when, and that is gonna take over. You know, and so that is it is coming to fruition. We're really fortunate, not just for us, but all the home sleep companies as well.
What do you think was a surprise during that time that made you pivot and end up with a successful program with you have? You know, different companies have their tipping points, so to speak. Where do you think yours was that you discovered that niche that really pushed you to the next level?
It was really our logistics service, you know, back in 2016 or so. I mean, and that's one of the differentiations of CleveMed is that we are vertically integrated. We're still a small business, but we're vertically integrated. So we didn't just stick with the device sale business model. We make devices. We have our SleepView monitor. It's a very small, easy to use monitor. But we decided a few years back that we need to also add a solution to a really big pain point to health systems, especially large health systems, and that is how to reach these patients. You know, as you know, we're dealing with hundreds and thousands of patients, as you know, every month. The mail order program was great, so we added that. But with the idea that we don't take over everything. Okay, so unlike other mail order solutions, home sleep testing providers, they took over everything, the logistics as well as the patient and the whole revenue and everything. So that competed with the sleep centers. You see, right from the beginning, we wanted to be a partner, not a vendor to sleep centers and sleep technology and sleep specialists. So um, when we added the mail order solution, we wanted to add a logistics solution. What do the sleep centers lack? And they lack the resources to and the shipping and the logistics, right? I mean, can you imagine huge hospitals doing, you know, the shipping stuff and supporting patients, and so that is what we added, and we added that with a high quality and cost effectiveness. So that was the pivot point, and of course, the pandemic came around in 2020. We were ready. So, I mean, sometimes luck favors the prepared. We were prepared. At that time, we had been doing this for a couple of years, 3, 4 years. The mail order logistics and the pandemic just opened up the floodgates for the mail order logistics solution for these large systems, and health systems found it as a way to really stay in business, right? Because patients weren't going to come over to pick up anything in their sleep center. So um, but yeah, we were fortunate in that we started that. We call it the SleepView Direct. It's the logistics service program back in 2016, I think. So it added quite a bit of business to the company.
Honey, I know that you are with CleveMed. You guys are a manufacturer. You're a service provider. All of those things. And as technology continues to change, and you see that the other devices that are out on the market start to get a little smaller and more disposable, how do you manage all of that with also sort of the pressures of the from the reimbursement side, just knowing what the every time the new Medicare rates come out, I know you have to hold your breath just a little bit to see how much lower they are than the year before, like we all do. So how do you balance of that to still try to keep the technology, at a high level, but be able to do it and still provide a service that really meets the reimbursement.
Yeah. So we are a home sleep testing supplier. So we don't build insurance companies. We supply the logistics and equipment to the so our customers are health systems who do the billing. But you're absolutely correct. We have to be aware of the lower reimbursements that they receive. So we need to deliver cost-effective solutions. The fact that we are vertically integrated gives us a lot of advantage. It is our monitor, it is our software, it's cloud-based software, our design for the monitor. We manufacture the monitors here. We also make the sensors. So we are a one-stop shop, and that gives us some cost savings and margins that we can actually share with the physicians. So that's why we believe our solutions are cost effective. But you're right, reimbursement continues to drop, and new technologies continue to emerge. You had some of the new technology, business leaders on your show, and they were fascinating. They're fascinating technology. Listen, we're a technology company, so I love new technologies, and we have a few things cooking, and hopefully we'll have an announcement in a few months, because we believe in the role of new technology. The question really is not will healthcare be benefited by these new technologies, but in which role? What role will these new technologies play? And we believe the newer technologies, the AI-based technologies, and so forth, may be better suited as for long-term monitoring as opposed to baseline evaluation. So that's, people talk about new technologies, but they don't talk much about the disease itself. We do have a chronic disease. This is a chronic disease that, and typically with chronic diseases, you have two types of monitoring technologies. You have a more extensive diagnosis, diagnostic technology to be used to diagnose the patient, and then you have smaller and perhaps the ring types of technology, what have you, for long-term monitoring of therapy efficacy. So that's where we see, at least in the beginning, the market developing. And I give the example of diabetes. Diabetes is just a chronic condition, right? And right now, you don't take the finger prick kind of the data glucose level from finger pricks to the doctor and say, can I get diagnosed with diabetes? No, you have to do an A1C test, an extensive test, and more things like that to get diagnosed with diabetes, and then perhaps to monitor your treatment and your quality of life. You do the routine finger pricks. So the same kind of thing really ought to happen, I think, with OSA. We've always believed that it's a chronic condition that needs to be treated as such. So we are not really threatened by the newer technologies. We have a plan, as I mentioned, that we will be introducing that, but we are thinking it's more of along the lines of having a more continuum of care type of approach to it, and maybe later on it can replace the baseline evaluation, perhaps in a few years out. But I think a lot of sleep physicians would be a lot more comfortable having direct measures of sleep, especially if they're prescribing a lifelong treatment. It's going to be with the patient for decades.
Kenny, by the way, I was trying to tee you up to make some big announcement on the show today that
no, we right. We, as a we were a wireless technology, and we have that for a living. Before the SleepView, we had bigger wireless devices and so forth. But you really have to, right? We love technologies, but not yet, Robert. Okay. But yeah, we welcome the new, the competition. I think it's better for the market, but we really have got to talk about the disease as much as we talk about technology. This is a chronic condition, must be treated like hypertension and diabetes or just about everything else, and we need to separate these technologies. I just don't see the type 3 or the direct measures going anywhere soon, but that's just my opinion.
Hani, appreciate that, and we are running out of time.
Okay.
But I want to make one point first. First is, I don't think there's anything weird about the way you got into the sleep industry. There was a physician that I knew that how he chose his specialty is he actually went onto the university's website to find out which department recently got the most funding, and it was in sleep, and that's how he got into that. So sometimes one thing or the other takes you in there. Well, before we close, can you talk a little bit more about why you have this passion, or your passion for talking more about the actual disorder as opposed to just talking about the technology? Could you just give us all a little note about that?
Yeah, and that's really a great question. It's a great point, because we've been around for a while, and that's really what drove my involvement in the sleep business, is that I just didn't hear a whole lot of OSA being treated as a chronic condition right from the beginning. Now there's been a little bit more talk about it. AASM issued this new practice guidelines about the longitudinal assessment of therapy efficacy. Okay, I mean, that is, in my opinion, should have happened perhaps 10, 15 years ago. But it's not the sleep doctor's fault. I mean, the insurance didn't pay for therapy follow-up much, right? I mean, it's just, so insurance policies need to change as well to accommodate that. And I think now with the remote patient monitoring codes and everything, it could help. But yeah, I do see a gap between how diabetes and hypertension or even obesity is treated and sleep apnea. I mean, sleep apnea is just a chronic condition like all of them. So I am passionate about that. Right from the beginning, when I joined CleveMed, I was just, surprised to hear very little about the chronic care of these patients. But I think it is getting better. I mean, you guys see the technologies and physicians as much as I do out there. I think it is gonna go there. I hope the insurance can support that pathway, insurance policies and reimbursement, because of course without it, it's going to be hard to do. um, but yeah, I'm quite optimistic about the growth, and where we're headed with, as a company, but also as an industry.
Henning, I appreciate you, talking about and evangelizing sleep as a chronic condition. It was actually one of my slides at the Philadelphia Sleep Society last week, where I talked about, you can go online and find chronic disease management programs for healthcare systems and hospitals all over the place, and not one of them includes sleep as part of their platform. It makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, Hani, we really should start closing. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you or get more information about your products, where could they reach out?
Yeah, our product name is SleepView monitor. It's a type 3 HSAT monitor. Our logistics service is called SleepView Direct. They can reach us at clevemed.com. They can call us at 877-CleveMed, or they can always reach us on phone, or by reaching to our website. You can ask for information on our website as well. So, we look forward to, working with everyone in this field. And I really want to thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate that. It's an excellent forum for folks to provide input and hopefully move the industry forward.
Well, thank you, Hani. That's very kind of you. But again, back to you for evangelizing the actual disorder. And we appreciate that and all the work that you're doing. And we also want to say thank you to the audience for growing along with us. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and don't forget to subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on all the various podcast platforms. Be sure to share it with your friends. And until next time, we say thank you so much for joining, and lights on.
All right, folks, before we move on to the next segment, very quick message from our friends and sponsors, 3B, or rather, React Health. They were formerly 3B Medical. For more information, be sure to go to reacthealth.com or contact your local sales representative. Now back to the show.
Okay. That was quite a show. Time for some post-cals. What'd you guys think?
It was great. It's been interesting watching CleveMed all these years. And one of my favorite, a quote that I'm going to keep in my mind for the future is, luck favors the prepared. I love that statement by him because you can see how they have really, along the way in the journey of his career and the company pioneering home sleep testing like they did, not just home sleep testing, but the type that they brought to market is extraordinary. And so much we could have talked so much more with him, just like all of our guests, about
Right.
journey and the technology. And too bad we couldn't hear about what's coming. So we'll have to have him back to hear about the future when they bring that to market.
Yes.
I tried, Emerson. I tried to get him to I don't think he understands this is the launch pad of new sleep products. That's the claim to fame for SleepTech Talk now. We're the launch pad.
You know, you're right. I did see you try. I was trying to hide my smile because you kept coaxing him, and it wasn't coming out. He's like, "Oh, that's a while back, a while from now." And okay, you don't want to talk about it. We get it. But
Yeah.
I will say, even at his level, I shouldn't say even at his level, but at the same time, I'm still going to say even at his level, president CEO of this technological corporation, he is still so passionate about the grassroots level of why we do what we do. What each and every one of us are doing is to take care of that patient's health. And in his case specifically, he's looking at obstructive sleep apnea. And that passion just came out so dramatically. It's like, my gosh, this guy really, truly does care. He really cares. He wants this technology to take care and help improve these patients' lives. And to me, that's what actually stuck out the most out of everything.
Well, not to mention that he just seems to be a super humble guy who wants to do great patient care and run a great company.
Right.
That is a good partner to the sleep labs that they work with. And, I think that if that's what he's been trying to do, he's a really successful guy, because he certainly seems to have, checked all of those boxes with his career. And, he's out evangelizing this sleep apnea as a chronic disease, which I'm absolutely on board with that. So, I appreciate that approach, to the conversation as well.
Can't agree more. I mean, like you said, such a humble guy, not like some of these folks on this show, these that are right now.
The host.
Terrible. Yeah.
Only the good-looking ones. Only the good-looking ones on this show.
Terrible. Hey, I'm very humble. I'm a very humble guy, and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm so humble. Okay. I want to let you know that.
I could cry any moment now. It's beautiful.
There you go. There you go.
Good stuff.
Yep.
With that being said, I think it's time to close.
Hey, our podcast really is like working a night shift, because we get a little bit, we're a little loopy at the end of the conversation here.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. It really is like the good old days when it's the hookup patient. By morning, you're like nudging the other guy and then get really loopy, and you're like,
yeah.
I have a quick story about just being a little bit loopy, and then we'll adjourn.
We all love stories, so please.
I'm working in a sleep lab as a sleep manager, and I come in. I'm greeting.
That is a story. You were working, but please.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It is a story. But I'm greeting the night techs to see how the night went and that sort of thing. And one of the guys goes to grab his keys and his little lunchbox that are on the window ledge. The window's open, and he drops his keys 8 stories down to a roof. Another section of the hospital. So he's got to figure out a way to go get his keys and get home at a reasonable time, because he has to come back and work again that night.
Oh my gosh. That is a bad day.
Oh man, where's Spider-Man when you need him, man? Huh?
Right.
That's right.
Oh, that's rough.
Yep.
And what did you guys do? You all stood there looking at him laughing, didn't you?
Oh, big time.
Of course you did.
Oh,
man.
All right.
Yeah,
well, appreciate that. With that, we're going to close. We hope you all enjoyed that story from Robert. Maybe we might have more story time in the future. But until next time, take care. Once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share. And until next time, cheers, everybody.